This is Shelley Kraft coming to you live on SNN Live. We're at the Sprott, Stansberry, Vancouver Natural Resource Symposium 2015. With me is Sean Brodrick, Natural Resource Specialist for the Oxford Club, and he's a speaker at this conference. Sean, welcome back to SNN Live.
Thanks very much for having me on, Shelley.
It's good to have you. So let's give our audience an idea of what the Oxford Club is and does.
Sure. Well, the Oxford Club helps people grow their wealth in all sorts of ways, and it also helps people find out what to do beyond wealth. I mean, once you've made a lot of money, what are you going to do with that wealth? What are you going to do with your life? We have a lot of interesting things on that as well, and I have to tell you, the subscribers write in such lovely letters. They're really thankful for how much the Oxford Club helps them out, and so it's actually a great place to work because you get that good feeling about that.
How many people subscribe to Oxford?
Oh, well, that's put me in a tough spot. I can tell you about my individual publications. I have Oxford Resource Explorer, which has about 30,000 people now. That might be 35. And then I have something called the $10 Trigger Alert, which is smaller cap stocks, and so that has a few hundred people.
So now let's get into it. What are you speaking on at this conference?
Well, I'm actually speaking on two things. In the morning, I'll be speaking about gold and about China, and how I think China's trying to force the gold price down so they can collect more of it. And I think that I have a good case there. People can make up their own minds. But in the short term anyway, I believe the price of gold, it isn't probably going higher, and it could go lower. And so that's one thing I think that many diehard gold bulls will have to adjust to. Longer term, I am more bullish. In the afternoon, I'll be speaking about energy. And again, I'm not really bullish on energy prices anywhere in the near term. We might see a turnaround at the beginning of next year, but until then, Saudi Arabia's pumping a lot more oil, Iraq's pumping a lot more oil, Iran's going to release a flood of oil on the market. There's a lot of stuff going on that will keep a lid on prices. But there are great ways to make money in the energy market, and so that's what I'll be speaking about as well.
So let's get back to gold for a minute.
Okay.
We're at a gold conference pretty much, so
Sure.
let's focus on that. And here's my question. Recently I read that China reported how much gold they actually had. It wasn't a big number as far as I was concerned. And, I thought, wow, that's what was it? I mean, what they report, like 382,000 tons?
Yeah.
And I said, what? That's all they had? Your comments?
That's probably not all they have. I mean, it seems rather obvious, the way that they've been buying so much of it. But I think they're at the point where they said, you know what, we don't own enough. So let's tell people we really aren't that interested in it, and let's slam the price lower. We saw a huge sale out of gold in the out of China in the early morning hours. It's the kind of thing you see happen when someone wants to knock things lower. We see it in stocks all the time. Now we're seeing it in gold. Gold is a manipulated market anyway. I think in the short term anyway, someone wants to manipulate it lower. I think China has longer term plans that include making their currency a world reserve currency, and a longer term plan about an economic conflict that it wants to win, that it sees brewing, about natural resources, about many other things. And so these are the things that I think gold is a piece of the picture that you have to be aware of, and there will be some wild swings in that market. I think that when the swings go down, and again, I think gold can get cheaper. When the swings go down, that's when you want to accumulate it, and then when things go back up, then you'll think you're a genius and everyone else will too. So there's a lot of stuff going on there.
So let's get back to China for a minute.
Sure.
So I also read, maybe I read too much, that China had a market downturn, and part of that were investors reaching into their pockets to cover margin calls. Now, for some reason, not understandably why, gold was tied to margin calls, so that they were liquidating gold in order to meet margin calls. Your comment.
Well, actually, I just wrote a fascinating report about this. I think it's fascinating, but you can find it at investmentu.com. And so here's the thing. There's actually two things. One, yes, there was incredible margin calls, huge debt margins on like all these stocks, and like people didn't feel they owned enough, so they'd open up these spoof accounts and all this stuff. But also, one way they secure these gray market loans in China is like taking out loans against things, including metal. And so that's actually one of the pressures you've seen in all the natural resources is people had big piles of aluminum and zinc and gold and everything else. And those loans got called in. That stuff had to be sold. And I think one of the buyers is the Chinese government. That's just my way of looking at things. But so we do have a tremendous imbalanced force going on there right now, which is the Chinese market. That said, I don't think that the Chinese market is going to zero. If you look at a longer-term chart of the Chinese stock market, it is a roller coaster from Hades. I mean, wild swings up and down. And anyone who buys the bottom or near the low of any of those pullbacks does extraordinarily well, but you don't want to hold it too long. Of most of the markets in the world, the Chinese market is one of the most speculative because there's a lot that goes on. I mean, it's not like our market. It's not like people really have to report things, and there's a lot that goes on that you really don't know about. That said, some of the larger companies there, especially ones connected to the internet, should do very well because everyone in China is like moving to the internet, moving to mobile devices. There's a lot going on there. And also, there are lots of opportunities, but you have to have a stomach for that kind of thing. If you're not comfortable investing in that kind of environment, by all means don't. There are better ways to make money if you like more stable investments, and many people should look for those.
Now, let's look at the second largest buyer of gold, India.
Okay.
How is their influence on the market being seen? They haven't stated how much gold they have, and they're a free democratic society, and they haven't let the world know. So do you, in your opinion, think they're still buyers?
Yes, not as much. One thing you have to understand is that the government over there got really concerned about how much gold is being imported to the country. So they made it difficult to import gold, and they also put taxes on it. And then they confused everybody with changing regulations. No one knew what the heck to do. So, but that seems to be easing. And so if some of that stuff is going away, then we'll see the buying come back out of India. India has a cultural attachment to gold, so naturally they're going to buy a lot more of it. And there's a whole bunch of Indians that are joining the middle class. If you join the middle class, you buy luxuries, and one of the things you're going to buy is gold. And just like in China, people in India don't trust their banks for good reason, so of course they're going to buy gold. So in the shorter term, we may not see the big surge in buying in India that I think many people are looking for. It's a very complex thing going on there right now. But longer term, with the trends they have, of course it's going to work out.
So let's take a segue now into the companies that are at this conference.
Sure.
They're some of this, I call them the survivors. And, how does what's going on in the current market, obviously when gold went below 1,100, some of these guys said, obviously, it's probably going lower because it broke a giant support system right there. Where do you think gold goes, and how does that affect these exploration, development, and some production companies?
Right, and that's an important point, is that not all companies are the same, right? Some are explorers, which, let's face it, that's a speculation anyway. Some know they have something, they're developers, but they have to raise money, which is tough to do in this market. If you find a company that can raise money at decent rates in this market, obviously the big money knows that, that's actually something that can actually work out. My view is that we could see gold under $900, and because we'll see an overcorrection on the downside once it breaks that support, which I think the Chinese are trying to do. Once it breaks that support, we'll see things go down, and then we'll see Panic City. Then we'll see the shopping opportunity that I think many people have been looking for. So I think what people should be doing is making their shopping lists. Many of the companies here, as you said, are survivors. They actually can ride this stuff out because they have great management, which is so important, and they have access to cash. So if they have great management and they have access to cash, they can actually ride out the bad times, and so you should be able to pick them up at bargain bin prices. Just wait for the panic before you buy. That said, I'm a person who's buying silver right now, and just to teach me a thing or two, silver goes lower, right? Which is actually what I wrote. I said, now I'm buying silver, so silver has to go down another $5 just because, the market's entirely about me, right? So I don't know where the bottom is. And anyone who says, well, this is the level it's going to, but it would seem that in a market that is as manipulated as this market is, it will go down lower. It'll probably break levels that some people thought wouldn't break, like $1,000. It'll probably break that because what they're trying to do, I believe there are forces in this market that are trying to cause a panic so that they can buy it on the cheap and buy a lot of it. And so we will see things turn around. I don't know when that is, but I know what I will buy when the panic comes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sean Brodrick. Sean, please do me a favor. Give everybody out there your website for more information.
Sure. It's investmentu.com. Definitely check us out, and I think you folks will like what you see there, and you'll like the Oxford Club because it really is a special place that helps people not only grow their wealth, but figure out what to do once they have that wealth.
Now, you write a lot, so
Yeah.
let's hear it.
Right.
You write on energy, you write on resource. I mean,
Energy, gold, pretty much all the metals. I also write on smaller stocks. I wrote a great report on Greece and ways you can make money on that. I just wrote a report on China. I also write about cybersecurity. I find many, many things fascinating, and there's plenty of ways to make money in any kind of market. You just have to not put money in the things that are going down, right? Isn't that the old joke? You only buy the things that are going up. But I find many things fascinating, and I find the way the world is changing into the 21st century. There are some mega trends that are going to make people a lot of money, and if you can ride those trends, I think you can do extraordinarily well. Trends do not go in one direction all the time. I think we're seeing a dip in the natural resource trend that can be deeper than many people thought it would go, and is going to go longer than many people thought it would go. But when it goes the other way, many projects that should have been built will not have been built, and that will provide rocket fuel for the next move. In the meantime, you know what? There are people being hacked every single day. The Defense Department says hackers try and hack it 1,000,000 times a day. There's money pouring into cybersecurity like you wouldn't believe. People should look at those kinds of stocks. Biotechs, I mean, yeah, sure, I like biotechs. Who doesn't when the entire world population is aging and getting older and has money to invest in drug stocks? Of course those look good. Use your brain. Definitely get help, and the Oxford Club has a lot of help on a lot of things that will work out for you, and don't lose your nerve. This market can be scary, but there are some great ways to make money in it.
and as they say on Wall Street, the trend is your friend.
The trend is your friend always, yes.
Sean Brodrick, Natural Resource Specialist for the Oxford Club. I'm Shelley Kraft. This is SNN Live, and we're coming to you live from the Sprott, Stansberry, Vancouver Natural Resource Symposium 2015. Sean, always a pleasure to see you.
Always a pleasure to see you too, Shelley. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime.